parties must go out on record to say that what would be the best practice. Mr. Speaker, the 9 individuals who we send to Yala will form part of, or they will be the Kenyan delegation. It does. I think to an extent will almost allow us to send a divided team to Yala. Mr. Speaker, I sit on the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations and also the Committee of Regional Integration. And I have seen the value of Yala and also sending the best to Yala. The way the parties are going to pick their best is up to them. But I think the final die must be cast with the decision of this House. For that reason, Mr. Speaker, if we say that this is our way or the highway, as the other side is attempting to say, I think it doesn't send a very good signal. Mr. Speaker, Rule 6.3 clearly says it requires political parties to nominate thrice the numbers of candidates as the party slot. That is the law. If we are going to amend that law here and in this House, then let that be so. But if we want to sidestep the law because it doesn't suit us at that moment, and I see even good lawyers in this House are simply saying, for this particular case, because of tyranny of numbers, let us sidestep the law. I think then we are not doing the right thing.
The Honorable Ali Rasu, I hear you quoting the law. Would you be referring to Rule 6.1?
6.3.
6.3.
Yes, it is in the report, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to support this report. But what I want to, or I wish to suggest or recommend is we need a bipartisan report that fits all sides so that we send a unified delegation to Yala. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. We shall now have a contribution from the Honorable Peter Kaluma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak to this matter. Speaker, my understanding of what we are doing is that once we elect the members in this House, they become representatives of our nation in the East African Legislative Assembly. So that immediately we do the act that we are required to do as Parliament, that act of election, there will be no representative of Kenya in Yala representing Jubilee or CORD. I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, picking from what Honorable Raso was speaking to. Ultimately, we need a unified front, representatives of our nation in the community of nations we have decided to be a party to, called East African. These members and citizens of our nation to represent us in the East African Legislative Assembly. The political parties, and that is the language, Mr. Speaker, I'm getting from Rule 6, Sub-Rule 1 of the material rules or the subject rules under consideration, that it takes the political parties to nominate. And actually, the rule is talking about an entitlement to political parties. The parties shall be entitled to nominate. That as a task of nomination is to be undertaken by the parties under their rules of nomination, so that it is not the business of anybody to micromanage, political parties. And of course, political parties will be undertaking nomination, looking at the roles, the membership, this being an entitlement, the membership would be privileged to be nominated, to be brought here, would be executing if successful in the assembly. Mr. Speaker, let me, at the risk of repetition, read this rule. that a party shall be entitled to nominate for election under these rules any number of candidates. Any number of candidates. Mr. Speaker, do we need interpretations on any number of candidates? Any number is any number from one of the elected members of parliament of that party by such number of the joint committee shall determine, and dividing the result by the arithmetic is provided there. But what I'm emphasizing, Mr. Speaker, is that a political party is told, you shall nominate any number of candidates to bring to the parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly for consideration for election, but not exceeding 3 times the positions or the slots available. Essentially, that is what I understand it to be saying. Mr. Speaker, where are we then? Are we rightly before this House as members of Parliament reading through this law which was passed by this House seeking to determine whether or not the minority side of the coalition, being referred to as CORD through its constituent parties, nominated properly? Mr. Speaker, I say that CORD has complied. I want to take the House, Mr. Speaker, if you would permit, to the recommendations being done. And Mr. Speaker, it is a matter on which I wanted to seek directions, but because I know, I will not seek directions. Mr. Speaker, time has come, Rule 6.1 being that clear, for us to really determine whether recommendation number 3, recommendation number 5, recommendation number 6, and 7 of the committee's recommendations are lawful. And Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I would request you think with me on this matter, looking at our sources of law and hierarchy of laws. Our sources of law and hierarchy of laws. Mr. Speaker, has been referred to a decision by the East African Court of Justice, a decision made in 2006. In terms of our sources of law, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to refer to the provisions of the Judicature Act at sections 8. Mr. Speaker, as a lawyer, knows and fully appreciates, as we do. Mr. Speaker, the Judicature Act at section 8 deals with the matter of the sources of law that will bind us. Actually, section 3. And Mr. Speaker, this is not just providing the sources of law, but also the hierarchy of laws. And you are told that when you are interpreting and determining what law would be applicable, the first law to look at, if it is clear, is the Constitution. That is section 3(1)(a) of the Judicature Act, chapter 8 of the laws of Kenya. Then it says all other written laws, there are statutes and rules and others. And of course then at C, Mr. Speaker, you get subject thereto and so far as those written laws do not extend or apply the substance of the common law, the doctrines of equity and statutes of general application in force in England by 12th August 1897, and the procedure and practice observed in courts. That is what we call judicial precedents. Mr. Speaker, I'm emphasizing this just to tell you that when you have a court determination such as the one that is becoming the basis of the committee's recommendations herein, they take the very last consideration in terms of guiding the decisions of a body such as Parliament or a court of law. Mr. Speaker, look at these recommendations keenly. You are being told that contrary to the provisions of Rule 6.1, that the constituent parties of CORD coalition should go and add some numbers. Essentially, you are being told that we should follow a court decision before we follow a statutory provision duly legislated and approved by this House. Outrightly, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you know the point I'm raising, Mr. Speaker, is a point over which I needed to share opinion with the chair. I don't know how long the good majority whip our leader on the other side is taking.
Proceed, the Honorable Kaluma.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm addressing the House on the legality of recommendation number 3, recommendation number 5, recommendation number 6, recommendation number 7. And Mr. Speaker, I've just referred the House to the provisions of Section 3 of the Judicature Act, Cap 8 of the laws of Kenya, which I was emphasizing, Mr. Speaker, deals with the matter of the sources of law and hierarchy of laws. You have a situation in recommendation number 3, where this committee so wrongly against the provisions of the Judicature Act at Section 3, say ignoring Rule 6.1, and saying ignore the idea of hierarchy of laws as provided in our own laws and their consideration, and be bound by a decision and implement it before it comes here. What I'm saying, number one, is that we are putting a limitation on the nominating party that is not contemplated by the rules. That is number one. But number two, we are also elevating a court decision to a level of supremacy, to a statutory law, a law legislated and approved by this parliament as other parliaments across, the region, contrary to the provisions of Section 3. And if, Mr. Speaker, the House agrees with me that recommendation number 3 is outright illegal, and recommendation number 4, that you can require a party to submit 3 times, when a statute passed by this parliament is saying a party will pass any number, but not exceeding 3 for each slot, is also unlawful. And if the House agrees with me to that extent, then recommendation number 6, that, time be extended and that others also fall. Mr. Speaker, let me end by saying the danger in recommendation number 7. We are sending a team to the East African, Legislative Assembly to represent our country. We cannot be this one country which in the eye of the East African community is manifesting itself always as engaged in small fights.
The Honorable Kaluma, you'll have 2 minutes to just make that point, that legal point.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the recommendation number 5 says that we extend time. When we want to extend time for Parliament to do this simple thing, essentially we are holding back the operations of the East African Legislative Assembly the other side. And I'm saying, as a House, we must take our country and our nation out of the dishonor and the manifestation of disorganization we would be giving the member states of the East African community in this regard. Mr. Speaker, some have said that if fixed numbers come here, then it is not an election. That is a fallacy. We have so many of us here in the past, now, and in the future, who have come here as unopposed, but under the Constitution, under the Elections Act, still they are elected members of this assembly. So the fact that you are unopposed in terms of any contestations does not remove the fact, Mr. Speaker, of an election. I uphold the position, and I request my colleagues agree, that we agree to a situation in which the parties are not micromanaged. Let us have a number here that is permissible within the law, and let us do the act. In fact, let me end, Mr. Speaker, by requesting the Jubilee side that we have so much to do in the short time remaining to the next elections as the 11th Parliament. These are not issues we should be taking too much time debating. It would have been even better if we had indications from our side on the majority, just making it clear to us who they want to be voted. We finish this thing in 5 or 2 minutes, and we focus on those other remaining businesses. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the indulgence. I thank you for the contribution.
The Honorable is out of order.
My point of order, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this report, even before this House, we should have even looked at the admissibility of this report, Mr. Speaker, because the Honorable Kaluma is talking about that people who are unopposed. But here is a case, Mr. Speaker, where we have 41 Kenyans who applied. And now there are some parties who have gone to sit somewhere, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kangogo, I think you're out of order. I think you're out of order. That is a point of argument. You will have an opportunity to make your point. But before I give this opportunity to the next speaker, I would like to recognize the presence in the speakers gallery of students from Zoia Sugar Company Primary School, Kandui constituency, Bungoma County. We welcome them to watch and learn from the proceedings of this August House. I'd also wish to recognize the presence of students from Moi Primary Kabarak High School, Rongai constituency in Nakuru County. I would also want to extend the welcome to the proceedings of this House. They are watching the proceedings from the Speaker's Gallery. And I would just like to let them know that I was a student myself at Moi High School, Kabarak. So you come from a very good school, and you are welcome to this House. I would like to give this opportunity now to the Honorable Ali Wario, the member for Bura.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa ili niweze changia hoja iliyoko mbele yetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza kabisa ningependa kusema nimesimama kuunga ripoti hii mkono kwa sababu mimi ni mwanachama ya kamati ambaye imetayarisha na ikaleta ripoti hii mbele yenu Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kufikia sasa hakuna tetezi yoyote juu ya ugavi ya nafasi ya wabunge ya Afrika Mashariki. Sehemu ya Jubilee wamepewa nafasi 5, sehemu ya CORD wamepewa nafasi 4. Independent candidates kwa bahati mbaya ni wachache, hawakupata nafasi. Hapo hakuna tetezi. Tetezi yetu iko wapi? Mheshimiwa Spika, tetezi iko kwa mchakato. Mchakato ya vipi tutagawanya nafasi hizi kwa Wakenya kwa njia halali. Kwa nini nasema hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika? Katika ripoti upande ya CORD Wakenya 41 wameomba nafasi waweze kupewa fursa wawakilishe Kenya katika Afrika Mashariki. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiniruhusu nitasoma barua ya pili. Barua hii imeandikwa kwa kimombo Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa ruhusa yako. Barua hii imeandikwa na Zeth Ouma Omolo. I hereby seek that Wiper Democratic Party submits at least 2 names to Parliament for election, as is the spirit of Rule 6.1, on the number of nominees of each party. Otherwise, subjecting the voters, own members of Parliament to an election.
The Honorable Wario, I have a problem with what you are...
I'm only reading a small part of it, Mr. Speaker. To an election...
No, Mr. Wario, the letter you have in your hands, there is no way the House can find out the authenticity or otherwise...
It's part of the report. It's the attachment.
It's part of the report?
It is the second attachment of that report.
If it is in the report, then it is quite in order. Then put the report.
It is in the report, Mr. Speaker.
It's part of the report, then proceed.
It is part of the report, Mr.
Proceed,
Speaker.
you are very well within your rights.
It is part of the report.
Proceed.
So I read, Mr. Speaker, I hereby seek that Wiper Democratic Party submits at least 2 names to Parliament for election, as is the spirit of Rule 6.1, on the number of nominees of each party. Otherwise, subjecting the voters, own members of Parliament, to an election where the candidate is one will defeat the very essence of an election. Mheshimiwa Speaker, wamezoea kudhulumu wa Kenya. Walipoomba wa Kenya 41 nafasi, unawanyamazisha na nguvu kwa sababu wengine wao, miongoni mwao Mheshimiwa Speaker, kuna mtoto wa running mate ya ODM. Hutoangalia haki ya Wakenya. Ndiposa tukasema, Mheshimiwa Speaker, siku ile tulipochagua jaji mkuu tulipeana jina ngapi kwa rais? Tulipeana jina 3. Kwa nini wakati tulichagua jaji mkuu tupeane jina 3, lakini wakati tunachagua wabunge wanayowakilisha Kenya kwa Afrika Mashariki, ODM inaleta jina 1? Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ni dhulma. Kama komiti sisi tumesema hatutaunga mkono hiyo dhulma. Mheshimiwa Spika,
Aliwario, there is a point of order from the member of Kitui Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is the honorable member in order to mislead this House that this House was presented with 3 names for the Chief Justice? Well, we are all very aware that we only got 1 name, and we approved that name, and the President has sent it to that approval.
The Honorable Ali Wario.
Mheshimiwa Spika,
Yes.
naomba kuondoa hoja, lakini wanayoshika ofisi ya kikatiba, bunge inapitisha jina 3, rais achague jina 1 miongoni mwa hizo 3.
The Honorable Wario, do I hear you say that you have withdrawn the statement that 3 names for Chief Justice were presented to this House?
Ndio Mheshimiwa Spika.
Sawa sawa, naendelea.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesema tatizo sio idadi, tatizo ni mchakato. Kwa mchakato, Mheshimiwa Spika, walipoomba wa Kenya 41 nafasi, utawanyamazisha vipi ulete majina 4? Wakati Jubilee wamepewa nafasi 5, kwa kila nafasi wameleta nafasi 3 ili bunge wafanye uchaguzi. Ukileta majina 4, Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo ni uteuzi ama ni uchaguzi? Na ukizoea kudhulumu wa Kenya, usilazimishe bunge ikuunge mkono katika dhuluma zako, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wengine wanasema tunatumia namba kudhulumu upande ya code. Kama tungedhulumu numbers, Mheshimiwa Spika, tusingepeana siku zaidi. Ukiangalia pendekezo ya 5 imepeana nafasi kwa code waende walete majina 7 zaidi. Kama ni tyranny of number vile wanavyosema, kweli tungewapatia nafasi walete majina zaidi? Tusingefanya hivyo, Mheshimiwa Spika. Komiti yetu imefanya haki. Komiti imekaa ikaambia code, kwa sababu mumeleta majina 5, leteni majina mengine 7 wawe 12. Utakapoleta bunge waweze chagua majina kadhaa. Usitupe watoto ambaye baba yao ni running mate. Wako wa Kenya wengine ambaye wako na haki. Wako wa Kenya wengine ambaye wako na haki. Walete hapa tuwachague, na sisi hatuko hapa kufanya uteuzi, tuko hapa kufanya uchaguzi.
The Honorable Wario will be heard with the in silence.
Waseme chama imethudhulumu. Sisi kama komiti hatutaunga mkono dhulma ya vyama, Mheshimiwa Spika. Hii ni bunge, na bunge haiko hapa kufanya uteuzi. Utakaposoma kanuni ya Afrika Mashariki inasema bunge ifanye uchaguzi, bunge isifanye uteuzi. Kwa hayo machache, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimesimama kuunga mkono ripoti ambayo iko mbele yetu. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Very well. I don't know what is exciting the Honorable Wario. It must be his contributions, but it's quite in order. We shall have the Honorable Nyikan.
Chair, I stand on standing order number 96 to actually move that the debate on this be adjourned and postponed. Mr. Speaker, if you notice, this is an extremely important motion and that there is need for further discussion by the parties, because what is really happening is that one,
Honorable Nyika, you are making a point, but you can see me consulting with the table.
That's why
We are having a difficulty because we need concession from the other side. So I believe that before you make the application that you desire to make, let the table endeavor to get a representative of the right side so that you can make that application and they can have their say to it. In that event, then I will ask you to step down so that I will have contributions from the Honorable Mule in the meantime.
Clear on onset that, Mr. Speaker, I want to oppose this report before this House for very several reasons. One main reason of opposing this report is that the committee didn't read the total ruling of the court in the court ruling from Yala. And Mr. Speaker, as a House, we need to applaud the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, if we continue with this debate of this report and the recommendations which are being given by the committee, I can assure you we are exercising, we are doing an exercise in futility, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it baffles me when a committee just sits down and make recommendations which are completely unlawful, yet we are lawful House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Rule 6.1 had already been dealt with by the court. Mr. Speaker, this committee, when they sat down, they based their argument on Rule 6.1. Mr. Speaker, I hear members putting in situations of the character, the membership we are sending to Yala, Mr. Speaker. At Yala, Mr. Speaker, we are sending qualified, credible Kenyans who belongs to Kenyans. I've just heard Honorable Orio talk about a son of a running mate of a coalition called NASA. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask a very simple question. Is that deputy principal in that coalition, is he not a Kenyan? He is a Kenyan. The yes is yes. The answer is yes. The son of that principal, is he a qualified, schooled Kenyan? Yes. Kenneth Musyoka is qualified and is a Kenyan. Why are we bringing issues? And I want to ask members in this House, unless you don't have kids, be aware one day you will not be in this House and you need your kids to be in position in this House. Mr. Speaker, it pains me. I pay school fees for my son. And if to be in this House, it makes my son not to be eligible for any duty in this country, I think I'm in the wrong House. Mr. Speaker, we want to be very clear that there is a time for tomorrow. There is a time to determine what decision we take in this House. And you find our own leader of a political party in this country try to nullify a youth. Yet that party claims to advance the issues of the youth. The Wiper Democratic Party, we adore the youth of this country. And that's why we gave the name of one Kenneth Musyoka to go to Yala to represent these students you can see on the Speaker's gallery, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second thing I want to...
Honorable Mule, I must guide you.
Yes.
We are not discussing specific nominees. We are basically just discussing the report of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided, but I had to put it very clear because the members insinuated that.
Very well.
Mr. Speaker, I want to put it very clear. The same rule, 6.1, being talked about in this House, it is very clear and does not have minimum number. Unless we amend that rule, unless we deal with the law, we must work with the names which have been given to this House by the political parties which are very clear, eligible to provide nominees to this House. And if the Jubilee side wants to bring all Kenyans in this House, they can bring the 43 members to this House and will vote the best. If CORD and Wiper and the other coalition, we have done a clear due diligence of the members we need to bring to this House. I can't understand what is the problem of Jubilee trying to impose members who we need to bring into this House, Mr. Speaker. It is very unfair. It is very clear that people have ill motive on the candidate we are bringing to this House. Mr. Speaker, look at recommendation number 7. The Speaker of both Houses make a determination to extend the timelines. Mr. Speaker, we don't have time to extend anymore. We don't have enough time even to deal with our own issues. This afternoon, this House moved a motion that we cannot sit on Tuesday to go and deal with the issues of IEBC. As a nation, we need to be very clear. We are bound to the timelines which have been given by IALA. And we must come out very clearly to know how best do we handle our situation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very unbelievable when you look at recommendation number 6, that in conclusion, the presiding officers to forward list of further nominees. The rule is very clear. You nominate between 1 and whatever number, and the rule goes ahead and gives the opportunity for the particular political parties to give numbers.
Mr. Speaker, I think you can guide Tuale. I believe he thinks he's in his own arena, he's taking care of the camels in Northeastern.
The leader of majority, the Honorable Tony, cannot hear himself.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was commending the committee for the good work which they have done in ensuring that they went through the documents of various nominees and vetting them thoroughly, referring them to IPC, referring them to the register of the political parties to ensure that they meet all those conditions required. I'm also happy they were able to go through all those conditions as required by Article 50 of the East African Community Treaty, where different political shades of opinion needs to be taken care of, and they did some good calculations. I believe they had some good mathematicians in that committee, where they calculated and gave Jubilee Coalition 5 slots and the CORD Coalition 4 slots. It was unfortunate for the independent candidates that they could only get 0, but that is what they are entitled to, and I believe that was very, very fair. I am also happy to see that the issues of gender are well addressed in the list of nominees. What I am not very sure is on the issue of special interest. Are the youths well represented in this list? Are the people with disabilities well represented? I have not seen one with disabilities in this list. I'm not sure, because I have not seen anywhere in the report that there is one with disabilities. But I'm happy, at least from Bomet County, we have one youth by the name Stacy Chepkemoi. I believe that is one person we will need to push through, because this is a youth who has been aggressive in ensuring that the youths of the rights of the youths are well taken care of. This has been the youth president for Bomet County, elected, and she was unfortunate in the just concluded Jubilee nomination to have lost for the seat of the senator. I'm also disappointed a little bit with the court coalition that they only gave us a list of 4 names, exactly 4 names, and giving us no room to elect, to practice the democratic rights which we are entitled to. But of course, they are taking advantage of the provision of the rules of the treaty, and we cannot blame them for that.
The Honorable Nyikal, I see intervention. The Honorable Tonui, just hold on a minute. I see intervention from the Honorable Nyikal, who had proposed to make an application. Just hold your horses, the Honorable Tonui. You will have your time reserved. You will speak to this. But let us hear what is banning the Honorable Nyikal.
Mr. Speaker, I stand on standing order number 96. Mr. Speaker, if you notice the discussion that is going on, it's basically like a contest on what the party should do. And it does appear to me that there is need for more consultation on this matter. I therefore rise on standing order number 96 and ask for adjournment for a future date.
Very well. The Leader of Majority, this is for you.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I happen to be the leader on this side. I have no problem with the adjournment under 96, because as I listened to this debate, Mr. Speaker, I also saw another complex matter in the report. There were 15 independents. And these 15 independents, the committee, yes, and the committee, when it was doing its report, in its recommendation, should have added that the committee further nullifies the professional nomination professional certificate. So as we sit here, there are 15 Kenyans who this report is denying them an opportunity, but they have some legal document in the name of professional nomination certificate issued by the 2 presiding officers. That brings me to the issue of that we need to go and look at this bill. But Mr. Speaker, the contest here between the parties is about those who want to, build political dynasties, and those of us who want to bring peasants, the sons and the daughters of peasants, to this house. That is the contest. It should be very clear. It's those of us who say, those of us who went to school when we had no shoes and ended up to this house, we shall defend that. And there are those who want to perpetuate their positions in, but that I'll discuss it when the full debate starts. But I stand for the peasants and the poor Kenyans who don't have an opportunity must be given by political parties, and it must represent the face of Kenya. I mean, I will speak the same if Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta brings his son. I will speak the same if William Ruto brings Moses Wetangula, or even Mheshimiwa Madegu. It's like Mheshimiwa Madegu becomes a governor, and then after he retires, he says, my son to become the running mate of the next governor. This is not tidy. It's not decent. I have nothing. It's about tidiness in life. So I support that with the permission of Honorable Nyikal, we do further consultation and also do the cleanup. But either way, Mr. Speaker, I want to go on the Hansard. Either way, and if the member for Homa Bay Town, there's a man who wrestled him one day, and he bet him in the nomination. Congratulations. That man was just wrestling you on the ground, but you bet him in the nomination badly. He should not joke with you. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to go on record that this is an election. That this is an election where the 349 members are the voters, and the 2 chambers of parliament are the polling stations, and the 2 clerks are the presiding officers. So if you are not a voter, you cannot influence. Yes, and you can't wrestle people here. Yes, you can't wrestle here. So, Mr. Speaker, I support, and that we must be given our democratic right to elect the children of Kenya who come from very poor backgrounds, so that they get an opportunity to sit in East Africa. We should not extend dynasties. And I want to thank the chairman of ODM. You know, he realizes and he convinced Oburu, can you back down? The wiper leadership must do the same. And I want to thank ODM. You know, I've been in ODM. There's a very intelligent, it has very intelligent people. The moment I did a press conference on a Sunday, Monday, Honorable Oburu said, I have thrown the towel. Do not take Kennedy Musyoka to the mud. He is a nice, refined lawyer. He can serve us in any other capacity. This seat belongs to the peasants, the likes of Mbandi and Gumbo, who was rigged, Mr. Speaker. You know, Gumbo is a man, is a son of a peasant. He is popular on the ground. No, that culture we stopped. Yes, Beth Mugo will go with the Oburu, and the Oburus will leave. This is a new chapter. Thank you, I support.
The honorable members, according to our standing orders, this is basically a motion for adjournment, and the moment it finishes, that is it. And I think I'm convinced that the reasons that have been presented are sufficient for us to adjourn debate on this particular motion. I therefore direct that the motion is taken off for now until the two sides agree on what to do. Then when we resume debate on this particular motion, the Honorable Tonui will have his time, remainder time of 5 minutes to finalize his contributions. I therefore direct that we move to the next order.
Order number 11, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, number 6, National Assembly Bill number 65 of 2015, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I want to seek your indulgence. This is a very, very important bill. This is a bill on the gender principle and progressive. And Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chair of ODM, if he doesn't want this bill,
members, that considering the enormity of the lead.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important bill and a serious one. So I really want to indulge you that this bill is put on the order paper on a day as a first item, when the House is full, when everybody is ready, when we can, because we can't just discuss it when already it's 5:30. And I really want to urge you that it's a serious bill. My sisters are not here. A number of members of parliament are not here. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to seek your direction that we defer to next week, either Thursday, we put it the first item. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mbandi, you know, it's not a classroom. You know, you are raising your hand. But this is because of the
It does not desire to be present. I will therefore move on to the next interested member. And do I see interest from the Honorable Makali Mulu?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to make my contribution to this important motion. The motion on this
bill. The Honorable Makali, just before you get into dig in, I would like to just alert members that this is a new motion. This is the Public Accounts Committee report, and I would ask members to key in if they wish to speak to this. afresh so that we know who is interested in this one. Proceed, the Honorable Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by really appreciating the work done by the Public Accounts Committee under the leadership of the Honorable Gumbo. Mr. Speaker, listening to the moving of this motion yesterday, this report, Mr. Speaker, brings out issues which are of serious national concern. And Mr. Speaker, without dealing so much on the figures, because Kenyans have already read these figures, and these figures, Mr. Speaker, are such high figures that Kenyans cannot imagine how this country can lose such amounts of money and still be on our feet. Mr. Speaker, I want to focus more on really the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of holding public office and being given the mandate, Mr. Speaker, to be an accounting officer and being a responsible officer, Mr. Speaker. When you read through this report, Mr. Speaker, you can see, Mr. Speaker, there is serious abuse of opportunities given to Kenyans by other Kenyans to be in charge of public offices, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this matter of the National Youth Service is a matter of national concern. As a country, we are going through very hard times in terms of youth unemployment. And I would imagine, Mr. Speaker, any Kenyan given the mandate to be in charge of youth affairs or anything to do with the youth needs to cover that extra mile, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that these issues, the issues of youth, are handled with high degree of care to make sure that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to get these sons or daughters of ours out of this unemployment situation, which actually makes most of them despair in life, Mr. Speaker. And as a result of that, they resort to issues like drugs and other issues which are not really socially correct, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, really, I've said it many times and I want to repeat it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this country needs to move to the next level. The next level that if you are thought or seen to have misused, misdirected, misappropriated public resources, Mr. Speaker, then you are barred from holding any public office for the rest of your life. If it is confirmed, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, I think now it has come to a time when this country have gotten to a culture where you get to a public office, root that public office, use the route, Mr. Speaker, seek for another public office and more so an elective office, Mr. Speaker. And as a result of that, then you come here and use all the powers you have in this house, all the privileges you have in this house, and you defend that position. So, Mr. Speaker, as a Kenyan, and more so, a Kenyan who really loves this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this report.
Is that the honorable member for Tharaka? Baringo. The honorable member, you know how to conduct yourself when you're in the chamber. Yeah, kindly let the honorable Makalim.
Yeah, so, Mr. Speaker, despite the time it has taken for this report to come to the House, and I will not be surprised, Mr. Speaker, to really say that, to find that even presentation of this report to this House might have really been delayed. Mr. Speaker, there could have been some people working underneath to make sure that this report is never presented. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the House Business Committee for making sure that before the end of the 11th Parliament, the time of the 11th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we have a chance to discuss this report and put it on record, Mr. Speaker, that this is not the way to go as Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I was looking at the people who have really been mentioned to be some of the potential candidates, or people who might have misappropriated public resources, Mr. Speaker. And when you look at those particular individuals, Mr. Speaker, and the amounts being mentioned, you ask yourself, as a Kenyan, why do you need all that much money, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we are all sure that when you die, you only need a coffin which you can cost as much as about $1 million if you are very expensive. When you die, you only need a piece of land which measures about 6 feet by 3, Mr. Speaker. When you die, nobody will put you into that coffin with your gold. Nobody will put you into that coffin with your houses. Nobody will put you into that coffin with your best car, which could be a Mercedes, a Prado, a Range Rover. And I really wonder, why do Kenyans go to that extent of accumulating this level of wealth, which at the end of the day, you leave it here, but you will have messed so many lives of so many young Kenyans to an extent that even God cannot bless you because of what the misdeeds you've done to these young Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, even as I support this report, and Mr. Speaker, to me, I think the recommendations of this report need to be taken up immediately, Mr. Speaker, so that they actually acted upon. And our implementation committee, Mr. Speaker, I wish there's a way we could give this committee of ours some teeth so that it can bite. Because, Mr. Speaker, other countries where we have visited, we've realized this is a committee which can really bite. When there's need to bite, they will bite immediately. And people will really be, the biting will be so severe that at the end of the day, people will realize there's a committee. So, Mr. Speaker, one of my prayers to this House is that the next 12th Parliament, this committee need to make it, to give it so much powers that when things like this come to this House and they're adopted, such a recommendation adopted by the House, Mr. Speaker, that members of Parliament who are so hardworking like our Honorable Ngumbo here, don't think that what they are doing is so in vain. Because look at the time it has taken, the resources it has taken to have this report ready. It will be very unfortunate that at the end of the day, this report becomes another book in the shelves of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So I think time has come when, Mr. Speaker, these reports, when we discuss them, they are taken seriously. The other point, Mr. Speaker, I want to say is this. Oh, what you're talking about, Mr. Speaker, is the whole issue of corruption in this country. Corruption has such a deep roots in this country to an extent that, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, we put an archbishop now in charge of our Ethics and Corruption Commission. I hope we'll be able to make use of the prayers and to some extent the laws we have put in place in this House, that we might be able to tackle this big animal called corruption. Because, Mr. Speaker, why not for corruption? We wouldn't be talking about this. Mr. Speaker, look at the amount, the 795 or so million which you are discussing. I was just imagining, Mr. Speaker, if we gave the youth of this country, out of the about 800 million, which was misdirected, Mr. Speaker, if we just gave each youth out of those millions, 100,000 to start a small kiosk or a small business somewhere in this country, how many youth would have benefited? Yesterday, I watched my colleague, Ken Okoth of Kibera, making a contribution to this particular report, Mr. Speaker. And I could see the pain in him when he says the youth from Kibera, Mr. Speaker, were actually misused. They worked hard to make sure that they don't go for handouts. And even after such hard work, Mr. Speaker, they were not paid. Even up to today, they have not been able to get what I would call their earnings, Mr. Speaker. And I think, Mr. Speaker, I don't imagine such a group of people, the so-called youth of Kibera, to be praying that those individuals who are mentioned in this report, that they succeed in their life. They must be cursing them. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, in the long run, if you do bad things to the disadvantaged, the marginalized, the disabled, you'll have to pay for it one day. And I believe the Almighty God will make sure that these characters, even if they are not punished by the laws of this land, they will be punished by God. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to support adoption of this report, and I say the recommendations must be implemented immediately so that we see action.
The issue came out as a result of public outcry and concerns that were raised regarding embezzlement of funds that took place in INYS under the Ministry of Devolution. Mr. Speaker, as a committee, we were seized of this matter. We invited witnesses. In fact, I think this is one of those investigations that have been conducted in this House where a record number of witnesses have been invited. And they have been voted to go and run as candidates in certain counties. Far from it.